of course, who have who showed their intention to that survey there are a lot of those companies. We already reached more than 550 companies here in Flanders and 50,000 employees. And what is, of course, for us very important is that the data of those 50,000 people give us as a government a great inside view on how we have to adapt our policy and to get people to sport at work. Two more tools I can talk you is, for example, what we are trying to do is now to install permanent running tracks in the business parks. That is a new project that we try to realize over all of Flanders. And we have also something like a Zen sport platform. So a platform where people can do yoga or can try to do meditation. And that is also constructed. It's very cheap to construct those platforms into the business parks. And it is also very light sport infrastructure. So it's also quite cheap to construct it. We are, of course, and that is what Simon also told, we are very pleased 3 years ago that EFCS asked us to be part of the family of the Healthy Employee Mobile and Active Consortium, a 3-year program intended to tackle those high-level issues of physical inactivity in Europe at the working place. And of course, we supported and co-funded by, we are co-founded by the European Commission in the field of Erasmus Plus program and the European Week of Sport. As Sport Flanders, we are very pleased to play an active role in this program to contribute to the aim to trigger sedentary lifestyles by promoting those physical activity throughout the stages of life and targets employees as a whole. Of course, this project has also faced the COVID-19 period, which made it hard to maintain our goals, our setup goals. But due to the partnership, we are able, I think, to have a valuable contribution to the project, of which the results will be presented later on today. Thank you, EFCS. Thank you for the consortium. Thank you for the partners. So a lot of good practices to look back on, and of course, even more challenges are awaiting us in the future. The COVID-19 has impacted our goals, our aspect, but on the other hand, a lot of enterprises have already made also a virtual hybrid way of working necessity by implementing new working methods, and we see that sport and work are going well together. So thank you for being here. I pass the floor to the other colleagues. I have to go because I have some political problems at my workplace, but I'm convinced that the initiative will be valuable and that you will learn some good practices from our little country of Flanders and of all the other speakers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Paquet. Thank you, Philippe. I think the message came through that these are not hollow words when we say that Sport Flanders is active in the field of sports at work, but these are concrete actions and concrete engagements. For those active in the field of European sport policy, I think I don't need to introduce her. The next speaker, I mean, that's the leading lady of the European Commission Sport Unit, the head of the unit, I mean, Ms. Floor van Aanhout. Welcome.
Thank you, and thank you for introducing me. Thank you for inviting me to your conference where we can discuss what you learned in the project. For us, of course, designing the policies, it is very interesting and rewarding to also see and hear what happens with the Erasmus project, what can we learn from it, and what can in turn we learn from you when we develop our policy. And also, of course, since we're here in the Flemish government, dank u wel voor de uitnodiging en met veel plezier. So when we were preparing for your conference, we had a little talk with the organizers, and when they were explaining me what is so good about promoting sport in the workplace, they came with some very clear figures, which I suppose you all know. It's only 13% of employees have access to these facilities. whereas we know that everybody needs to be active and the cost of inactivity is huge. So it's, you said, 80 billion every year in cost of inactivity that weigh on society. So the business case, if we can say so, for promoting sport in the workplace is very, very clear. And I can add some more figures to it. Of course, in policy, we also look at figures and evidence, and we can only confirm that these findings are so important because the figures are quite telling. Half of all adults in Europe is never practices any sport, is inactive. And also half of all Europeans are overweight. So these figures are tremendous, and we can go on quoting figures, which I will not. But of course, the health effect, the damage that this does to our health is very significant. And of course, with COVID, this was the time when we were all confronted with how precious our health is, and when we're not healthy, how much more we are at risk of danger. So this is maybe a time indeed to look back and to say now is a good time to discuss and do things differently. I mean, post-COVID, indeed, this is still for a medium-term future. Let's hope so. But when we go back to the workplace, these can be things that can be changed, and this is a good time to reflect and look at our practices and not go back to the old normal, but create a new normal that is better and brings in this new activities. This will also, without any doubt, and I think we have all personally experienced this, be something we welcome when we have the chance to move around and invest in our health and well-being. Why in the workplace? This is the last thing I will add on the figures. Is of course one can be active in the weekends practicing sport and still end up in the figures that are so bad that we saw here, because one can be sedentary and active at the same time, simply because of the fact that it's still, even if you practice sport and you fulfill all the WH requirements, sitting 8 hours a day is not healthy. So this is maybe also something to keep in mind, why what you do is good and why we're also supporting this. Now, what are we doing? Of course, health is super important. I've already said it. And so this, of course, has also influenced the strategic priorities in sport policy. And our commissioner has launched a big initiative called Healthy Lifestyle for All in September this year, with the aim to mobilize all our resources, our efforts to invest in health, physical activity, and see how they can combined bring value and benefits to Europeans. From the Commission side, we have announced a number of activities. First of all, in a number of major EU programming funds, we have put in the priority for health and physical activity. This is true for Erasmus Plus Sport, which of course always dedicates resources to this, but also in the health, the EU for Health program run by our colleagues on health policy. This is now included. Also in Horizon Europe, there are big funds. They're far more significant than what we have in Erasmus, is dedicated to this. But also in our youth programs, in the volunteering programs, health is a priority and can be mobilized for projects to support this initiative. Furthermore, we will also work on health and well-being in schools. In the recommendations we will give to member states on well-being, on how to cope with blended learning, which becomes something of the future as well. There are 9 pledges in total. I invite you to go and check on the website what they all are in further detail. It's very interesting. But what is also more interesting is we all know that getting people really active will not happen by declarations from Brussels, from the Parliament, or even from policymakers. No matter how strong our good intentions, for really change to happen, we also need to work with partners. Partners like yourselves who work in companies, who work in schools, who work with sport federations, who can really reach out to their members, to their employees, to the people they're in touch with on a daily basis to make this change. So healthy lifestyle is built on what we call a co-creation process. So what we did is, here are our pledges from the EU, but also please, stakeholders, what can you do to help us? So together we can do something very significant, and there the 1 and 1 is more than 2, it's maybe 3 or 4 or even more. So this has happened, and we are working now with a number of organizations who have joined this initiative and who work with us to take action. And also, if you're interested, this initiative is running for 2 years. The pledge board where you can contribute, where you can join this initiative, is open permanently. So whoever is interested, you can go to our website, Healthy Lifestyle for All, or you can reach out to me. I will be here for the conference, so we can happy to give you more information on that. We are also supporting you. I said, well, there are the Erasmus projects, and my colleague Yves will speak about that in a minute. But we also have an award every year to promote and give visibility to the promotion of being active in the workplace. And so there is every year an award. This year, the award will be handed out on the 29th of November. And I was listening carefully to the news and to colleagues saying, will it go on? It may be online, so it's to be seen. But at the end of November, we will hand out an award. And the finalists this year are Volvo Cars, an IT company, iData from Hungary, and also the waste collection service from the city of Porto. And so at the end of the month, one of these 3 finalists will carry the title of the best Be Active program in the workplace. And of course, if you're jealous that your name is not here on the list, this is a yearly award. So you can find all information again on the website, or we can inform you. And you're very welcome also to join this initiative and to apply for the award for next year. So a lot is going on. You can also be part of this. So if you're interested to join us in the shared cause of promoting physical activity and health in Europe, sign your pledge or apply for the award. And let's also discuss that is in itself a good contribution, because where we learn, we improve, and where we improve, we will do better. So thank you, and I'll stop here, and thank you for your attention. Dank u wel.
Thank you very much, Floor, for an inspiring and strong message. We keep our fingers crossed for the project that made it to the shortlist of the Be Active Awards, Volvo Cars, but without any doubt, all the other projects within the shortlist, the other submitted projects are very valuable as well. And last but not least, formerly known as the head of the sport unit, but currently head of the executive agency, I would like to give the floor to Monsieur de Lostek.
Okay, thank you very much, Simon. As you just mentioned, some of you used to know me as the head of the sport unit. I have been in this position for a couple of years, and now I am in charge. I'm still head of unit, but in the executive agency of the Commission, in charge of the sport budget and Erasmus Plus budget, but still in connection in sport, which is and I. For sure, my favorite subject. So first of all, and by the way, I saw that you found I was a bad pupil because I didn't provide you with my picture, but you found one where I was a teenager. So thank you for for this nice picture you found. So. First, thanks to the European Federation of Company Sport for inviting me in this event. It's a sort of, and you give me the opportunity to go out from my office, which is very pleasant opportunity. It's a sort of tradition, because I think that last time I went out from my office, it was again at your invitation, President Besser. So every 3 weeks or every month, you give me an opportunity to go out from Rue Joseph II. So I appreciate this. And but we are here today to discuss, to evaluate, to check the progress of 2 projects which are progressing in parallel, not exactly with the same timing, but which are promoted or under the responsibility of the European Federation of Company Sport. I know it was a challenge of making them progress because of COVID times. These projects were clearly good and were in full conformity and in full coherence to what we are promoting in the European Commission and in the agency. And this is why they were selected. You know that the process is very competitive. This is why also the Commission decided to put at the end more than 700,000 euros on these 2 projects. So there was a very important support of us to these 2 initiatives, and we are very happy to see that things have progressed in spite of COVID. And it was very challenging. It was very challenging for project. It was very challenging time also for events, and precisely some time ago, 1 month ago, I was in the World Games of company sport, and I know it was a very challenging to organize such an event in such difficult times. I would say that just not to spend too much on COVID, but if there was just one positive thing to take from this period, is that in the European institutions and in our Brussels environment, this has shown how important sport and physical activity is. I think that this period has upgraded our policies in the level of importance of what we are doing together collectively in order to promote sport and activity. People have realized, or when I say people, the commissions at the highest level has realized even more than before how important it is to have a healthy lifestyle, and sport is not more than ever, sport and physical activity are more than ever regarded as tools, not only for leisure, not only for, let's say, pleasure, personal pleasure, but also as tools for health and also for economic growth. So both projects we are discussing today are promoting in a way directly or indirectly company sport. Flor just mentioned that how important in our view, in the Commission's views, in the agency's views, company sport is. I would summarize it very simply, saying that for us, all places, all opportunities to promote sport and physical activity are good, and companies is one of them. There are schools, there are universities, there are clubs. You can practice your own way also in the forest or in your garden, but companies are clearly a place where a privileged place also to promote sport, because it's good for the persons themselves, it's good for the company, and this is what we are doing in promoting such projects. And Flor just mentioned this very important initiative about healthy lifestyle for all, which is exactly in this spirit of joining forces, all kind of places of practice, all kind of ways of practice healthy lifestyle are good, and the Commission has been mobilized under the leadership of Commissioner Gabriel to promote this global approach. I had a discussion before about the links between sport and health, which is not always evident in institutions, because we are, as national governments, bureaucracies. We must make people work together, and really for this healthy lifestyle initiative, this is what we are doing. My last word will be about Erasmus+. These two projects were selected under the Erasmus+ last generation, 2014-2020. Erasmus+, since 2014, has been a privileged tool to promote sport and different aspects of sport, and also one of them being the link between sport and health, and the promotion of sport and physical activity in general. It was a privileged tool, and it will remain a privileged tool, because you know probably that our budget will be almost double for the next generation, for this generation of program. The amount for the sport of the sport budget was of 265 million euros in the next generation. It will be of 550 under the new generation. So big efforts and a big symbol. I know that it's not always politically correct to speak about winners in the discussions, but clearly sport as well as education and training were winners in the discussion taking place at commissioner levels to promote certain policies under the next generation of programs. This means that the Commission will continue to promote such projects. This means that there will be also, let's say with some changes, a big continuity in our priorities, in the way we will work. And I will finish with one word on this, with the way we will work. You know that this year was a little bit special. Some of you who were used to be part in Erasmus Plus projects know that our calendar was changed. It's for a very simple reason, because the program was the new program was adopted very late. So this meant that everything had to be put in place very late. Calls for proposals were launched late. There was little time to apply. We know this. We know this. It was an exceptional year. In spite of that, by the way, we never got so many applications. 1,300 applications for this Erasmus Plus Sport 2021. So it was a little bit a special year, a lot of pressure for us, a lot of pressure for you, for those who were submitting projects. This was specific to this year. It will change, and we will come already next year to the normal calendar with a call launch at the end of the year, Erasmus Plus Sport Info Day at the beginning, somewhere in January. It will be again the case this year with the presence of the commissioner. Deadlines somewhere in March, April. I'm speaking about each year, not especially next year, and results. Let's see, before or after summer break. This will be the normal way of proceeding in the future. This year, again, was a little bit particular. It is also a little bit particular because, unfortunately, the news are very good in the long terms concerning the budget. They are not good for this year because, as 7 years ago, the trend will be an increase of the budget. We started in Erasmus Plus in 2014 with 19 millions. We finished with 70. So it was like that. The trend was like that. We will restart the same way in this new generation, and we will start lower. So we will start this year with 52 million, and we will finish, I don't know where, but every year there will be 10 million, 12 million more. So at the end, there will be much more money for sport and physical activity. This year, for different reasons, will be a little bit more challenging for these reasons of delays and the pressure, administrative pressure, and for these reasons of also a little less money than last year. But generally speaking, the orientations are, let's say, the perspectives are good. There will be the budget. There is a political wish. There is a commissioner who is very active in promoting sport and physical activity in all its dimensions. So I think that we will have a lot of opportunities to continue to work together in the future. Thanks a lot for your attention, and I wish you a good session. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Monsieur Lustig. I think two key takeaway messages is the call for healthy lifestyle for all and the positive perspective on the EU budgets for sport. So thank you. Now let's dig a bit deeper into the projects. Firstly, the HEMA project, Healthy Employee Mobile and Active. How to boost active mobility and physical activity within the workplace. It's a sentence you need to read twice, I think, to really understand how tough that problem is and how difficult that question is to answer. But who else than Mr. Guur van Heuze and Mr. Alain Massard could answer this for us? So please, Mr. Heuze, President Assistant for EFCS and Project Manager for both the HEMA and the WAC project. The floor is yours, followed by Mr. Alain Massard, who will introduce a study conducted amongst employers and employees at European level in the field of the HEMA project. Please, welcome.
Hello, everybody. So I'm here as a representative of the EMA consortium, so Healthy Employee Mobile and Active Project. It was a project led by European Federation for Company Sport in the field of Erasmus Plus program. It started in 2019, so you imagine, as Mr. Rodostek said, how challenging is that dealing with this kind of project with different nationalities, with steering committees in different countries. But finally, we succeed, and one of our major reasons for success also, it was that we do not ask for any extension to the European agency, and for us, it is a first positive signal of the success of this project. It was an innovative project in the meaning that it was a cross-sectorial approach at first in the composition of the team. In the consortium, we have representatives from companies, we have representatives from universities, from sport, experts in active mobility, and public authorities. And also these partners have different influence zones. Some are acting on the local level, other on regional level, national level, and also European level. It was also, I think, the first time that in the story of the Erasmus Plus project that physical activity and active mobility, as well as the workplace, are associated in one project. And it was also something very challenging because it's not often that topics were associated, whether we really consider that there is an importance and a benefit of acting on these two aspects. The objective of that project was to study and share efficient good practices, identify and transfer specific and adapted programs for workplaces. We manage different activities during these 3 years. The project will end at the end of December. We manage different intellectual outputs and deliverables, such as state of play of mobility teams in European workplaces. A survey targeted to employees and to employers in order to identify major levers and breaks. Alain from University of Coimbra will tell you a few words on that. We also manage a digital connected challenge during the European Week of Sport 2020, among European workplaces to show also an example, to put our idea into practice and to make employees more active. And finally, we implement 2 different activities. This year, a pilot program test of 3 months in 3 countries, in Belgium, in Latvia, and in France. So it was very challenging also because it was in the time of lockdown. And we finally are here for this final conference. Thanks to all these activities, we now benefit from new data, new studies, new success stories, and new good practices. Our goal is to provide assistance and ideas for workplaces to engage into actions, but also to alert public authorities on the benefits of focusing on 2 aspects, physical activity and mobility at work. We salute and we congratulate the EU Commissions for the actions around the workplace. Since the last year, we have initiatives like the Tartu Call, like the Healthy Lifestyle Pledge, like the European Week of Sport with a focus day dedicated on the workplace. We have also a Be Active Award rewarding workplaces. So it's a very good signal for field of activities and also I think for EFCS. We also salute the work of Sport Vlaanderen because with other public authorities, we think that they are one of this success and one of exemplary public authorities because they consider that putting some resources, human resources, but also financial resources on this topic is of importance. It is a very good signal for the development of physical activity at work, and I will not repeat all the benefits of physical activity because for sure it will be stated during the different roundtables. Just a few data to give you. I also highlight the data that was stated by Florencia in her opening speech. The only 13% of EU citizens who practice physical activity at work. It is very weak data at the end. However, we have 2 other data. 100% of employees consider that it is useful to organize physical activity at work, and they recommend it to their other CEOs and other managers. So it's a signal that employers think that it's of importance. And secondly, depending on the studies, there are between 65 and 80% of employees who would like to have physical activity implemented in their workplaces. So we could consider that it's positive, these two data, but if we compare it to the 13% data, we also notice that it's a sign that it's a bad signal, because why not 50, not 60, not 70% of EU citizens who make it at the workplace level? So it will be the motto of the conference today, how to fight on this data and how to increase it. So for the EMA projects, you can have more information on the website of the project. It's emaproject.com. And if you have any questions, we are also here with all the partners that I really thank for their involvement all along these 3 years. Thank you very much for your attention.
Their organizer, their guest, and their public, and their decisor. I hope that this small state of play will be useful for you taking your future decision. When in this survey, we reached the conclusion that 60% of the company offer physical exercise opportunities, and that 82% of the employers try to motivate their employees for the active mobility. Then you can change the one more. Then the picture is nice. But when we ask to the employers and employees about the frequency of practice, we obtain those results. You can, between 30 and 50% of the companies offered this on a weekly basis. And this is not so good. Also, next slide, please. The 80% of the employees commute at work by car. Then, next slide. The picture is not so nice. When we ask, yes, when we ask the employers if active mobility is important for their employees, 100% answer yes. And when we ask that about physical exercise in workplace, 84% answer yes. And for the same question for the employees, 80% say yes. Then next slide, everybody say yes. Then this is very good, but remember the reality. Then the question, next slide, please. The question is why so few? And we try to give some answer in this small survey. What are the main barriers of mobility? Please, the next slide. According to the employers, it's a lack of time, lack of people to manage it, distance, and lack of infrastructure. On the side of the employees is lack of security. Then in Europe, probably in most of countries, the routes are not adapted for the active mobility. Also, important barrier are family reason. It's easier to conduct the children at school by car than with active mobility. Also for organizational reason, weather, and of course the distance, probably the main problem. For those reasons, 60% of the employees do not consider in the next future using the bike to commute to the work. In Europe, there are some exceptions, and Belgium, Vlaanderen is an exception because maybe in Wallonia it's not so good. Then, what do the companies in front of this difficult situation. They try to implement active mobility inside the company, like encourage the people to use the stair, walking meeting, trying to make workshops to help the people decide active mobility. And also the only strategy that we find in a significant number of companies is try to adapt the schedules. Okay, next slide, please. About the main barriers for physical exercise in workplace, first, lack of infrastructure. The distance is also a big problem. But the main problem is the lack of will of the other. And there we have a conflict between employers and employees. But maybe this conflict is not so important. Next slide. Because all of them recognize their own lack of will. Then next slide. Maybe we can reach a consensus in the main problem. Next slide, please. Another important misunderstanding is that the employer are strongly convinced that the employees are not available. But if you look on the right side at the result of the employees, probably this is not true. Then it's probably a main barrier that we can a little bit forget. It does exist, but we can't forget and make the focus on the lack of will. Next slide, please. Okay. Then when we ask the employees what stimulates them to make physical activity in the company or with the company, the first answer is very, very important. Next slide. Yes, half of the employees say that they don't feel stimulated. Then why they do not will? They are not stimulated. And very interestingly, excuse me for my English, is the next slide. Who motivate them, stimulate them better to make physical activities? The peers and the employers. And along our survey, we have many evidences that the employees give a lot of importance to the role of the employers. Next slide, please. Then I think it's a question of dialogue, but the employers is very welcome to help the employees to have a better mobility and to make exercise inside the company. Second barrier, next slide, are the infrastructure. Then when we ask employer and employees, what are the solutions? They are on the same line. We need a place, a changing room. We need showers, and we need a place to make exercise in the company. The good news, yes. The good news is that for 42% of the employees, it's not necessary to have a specific infrastructure. If you have a mixed infrastructure that serves for the use of the company, but easy to use for the physical activity, they are happy. Then the good news, the solution, next slide, are not expensive. It's a question of creativity. Next slide. No. Okay. Then I had photography of example. You can do a physical exercise in the refectory, You can do this in meeting rooms, you can do this in the offices, and you can do this in the corridor of the company. And I had 2 photography that are not there. Okay, no problem. Is financial reason a main problem? Look at the main barrier according the employers. Maybe it's not it's a barrier, of course, but probably it's not the main barrier. But when we look at the budget, next slide, please, we see that the investment, the budget are inexisting or very, very low in 60% of the company. When the size of the company is bigger, the budget is bigger, but the problem remains the same. Next slide, please. 20% of the employers said that fiscal advantage are a motive to implement physical activity in the company. Then in Europe, 20% of the employers give this feedback. In France, it's 40%. In Belgium, Portugal, and Spain is 15%. Then probably the politic of the government can make the difference on the budget that the company are used. Another interesting point on our point of view is that the companies that allow the biggest budget are not the biggest one. We have companies that allow more than 100,000 euro each year, and they are companies of less than 5,000 employees. Then probably in the decision of the budget, in the balance, we have the company philosophy about physical exercise. And in 2 questions that we make in the survey, we ask the employers what are the main benefit of physical activity inside the company, and only half of the employers answer that it can improve the productivity of the employees. And in another question, they say that those aspects are only important, but not very important. Then probably a significant number of employers have not the notion of the impact of physical exercise on the performance and productivity. Fortunately, the science have many studies that show all the factors that contribute for a better productivity. Then if we inform better the employers, maybe we will help them to take the decision of better budget for the physical activity. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Massar, for these very interesting insights, and thank you as well to explain a bit more for the theory behind the project, Mr. Heuze. Now, what interests us as well is how to put this into practice, and therefore we have 3 guests who I invite to join us in front, and they can talk about their success stories on sport and mobility at work. So I would like to invite Ms. Annie Schaal, Mr. Philippe de Meijer, and Mr. Philippe Amaral in front to take place. Thank you. So Annie, let's start with your success story. A simple question to start with. How did you get involved in this project, and what kind of activities were organized at Orange?
Yeah. So first, I introduce myself. I'm Annie Schaal. I'm head of field B2B Orange Business Services. And my unit is about 900 people. When the EMA challenge was proposed, Orange Group know my interest in sport and asked for my participation. I immediately found it exciting to take part in an experiment which the aim is to promote sport in the workplace. So I was delighted that to learn that that my unit was chosen. Now I will tell you how we handle it. About 90 employees, 30 women and 60 men are involved from from the beginners to the advanced. And they got involved in this project, and this project took place in 3 stages from May to July. The first stage, due to health constraints, took place remotely. These participants were able to get back in shape and reconnect to collective by taking part in yoga or cardio training given by coaches. After this period of fitness training, we organized Olympics focused on 5 sports: football, tennis table, badminton, pétanque. It's important in France. And, it was to say table tennis. We ended this collective experiment the 2nd of July. You know, the 2nd of July, it's the first day in France that we are allowed to have more than 100 people outside. So we organized a running and orienting race in the huge park, the Park of Vincennes in Paris. It was a great time. It was a great time because, in conclusion, the greatest success of experiments is that not usually people in sport have got caught this game and now continue to train physically. Some people in my office go in the office by feet, and it can take an hour. It's very strong. So I think that the project was greatly appreciated by the staff, and the collective grew stronger, and people wanted to see each other again.
Okay, well, sounds great to work at Orange if I hear that. Could you tell us a bit more about the main results and impact of those activities?
Yeah, the results. I strongly believe that gathering during sports events allows to make connection regardless any hierarchy. Before the challenge, Emma, I want to take another story, because I proposed to my employees to participate to a cycling competition in the south of France last weekend of June. It was a relay race for 4 cyclists and 6 hours, and the goal is to maximize the numbers of turns in the Castellet automobile circuit. 16 people, including me, were involved in this project. It was strong moments, you know, because there is a Saturday is the preparation, the Sunday morning is the competition, and the Sunday night is a recuperation. And all these moments were very strong because it was collective moments, and everyone was supporting their colleagues, and then share joy, because, for the anecdote, one of our teams won the challenge. So it was very good for us. Meanwhile, my management committee was at the disposal of the cyclist runners by providing food and then a pasta party the eve of the competition. This moment created a sense of belonging in my unit. Then, during the formal working meeting, like the trade union meeting, the dialogue came easier. And eventually, if I come back to the project Emma, the employees were so happy to see each other again that the week which follows the project Emma, the rate of presence on the seat was multiplied by 3.
Well, I only hear benefits and good news. It sounds great. and it's not to criticize your work, but in general, not 100% of the employees engage in sport at work. So why is that according to you?
Yes, you're right. According to me, there are almost 3 reasons. First of all, some people are not comfortable to mix personal and professional life. They don't want to relieve their intimacy. You know, when you practice sport, you're less, now you are not impeccable. You sweat or you suffer. It's not very good. The second reason, it's that in France, the culture of presentism is very strong. So if you are in the work, you have to work all the time, 100 times. So if you know, otherwise you are considered like you're lazy. And the third reason, finally, I think it's very important. It's exemplarity. If the boss practices himself sport and consider that the sport increases efficacy in the work, I think that employees are not ashamed to involve themselves, and they think that sport is good for the activity, is included in the work.
Thank you very much, Michelle, to share your good example, to share your insights as well. Thank you. Next speaker on this round table, Mr. Philippe de Meijer. Of course, well-deserved applause. Thank you. Next person, Mr. Philippe de Meijer, team responsible for the active workplace at Sport Vlaanderen. Could you tell us a bit more about the active workplace setting at Sport Vlaanderen, please?
Well, Simon, as we are colleagues, I thought you know what we are doing. No, I'm just joking. You know that, but it's for the audience. It has been said several times today. Unfortunately, we still aren't fully in the post-COVID-19 era. Nevertheless, companies have mainly resumed their normal business. And in the sports sector also, we notice that the majority of activities are taking place in quite standard circumstances. As our CEO, Philippe, said in the introduction, we have seized the momentum a few weeks ago to relaunch our Sport at Work campaign under the term of Sportbedrijf, sport company in English. It's one of our main and important pillars to encourage Flemish enterprises to realize a real sporting and moving culture at the work floor. And within Sport Vlaanderen, we have a team of 7 people, including myself, and Koen is also here, which is daily working on this team. In collaboration, of course, with very valuable partners, we are investing a lot in this project, and we are very ambitious concerning this topic. As said also in the introduction, the goal we set ourselves by the end of 2024, so only 3 years to go, is that 50% of the Flemish small and medium-sized enterprises with more than 50 employees, so that means 3,750 companies in Flanders, have set up actions to introduce the sporting and moving culture at the work floor. One cannot reproach us for a lack of ambition, I guess. Now, how do we do this? Within Sport Vlaanderen, with our team, we are now working successfully for almost 5 years on this topic of realizing a real sporting and moving culture. And what do? We try to do 4 things. We advise, we inspire, we inform, and we motivate. And according to us, there are some necessary key elements to become a real sport company. We call them the 10 smart building blocks, as listed also on our website. So let me point out some of them. First of all, every company needs a plan with different initiatives in order to implement an integrated sporting and moving culture. And even more important, as also said by Mr. Paquet, it is decisive to have ambassadors in different departments. Next step, very important also, do what you say and say what you do. It is crucial to inform your employees about your actions to create engagement. An accessible and accommodative approach are also very important to get everyone involved at the office, at home, on the way to the office. And besides, try to keep in mind that not every employee has the same expectations and the same physical condition. Finally, infrastructure and the support of specific organizations and partners are absolutely crucial, I think.
Okay, thank you, Philippe. Thank you as well for me to fresh up my mind. We have been developing several tools. Could you elaborate a bit more on them? I recognize some from the office over here.
Yes, Simon, I saw you also took a tool from us to drink from Sport Vlaanderen. In order to reach our ambitious targets, we have launched some interesting tools to get companies on the way. And I also point out some of these. First of all, we have our digital survey that companies can order free of charge. This has been, in fact, a permanent fixture during this period and still is. And why is it so important? This survey maps the sportive needs from employees by asking them about 40 questions, I think, concerning mobility and sporting and moving behavior. Then we analyze the data and we supply a concrete action plan on the company level. And as said by Philippe Paquet in the introduction, over the years, we gathered data from over 550 companies and 50,000 employees. So Flanders is not that big. So 50,000 employees is very good data. This data also gives us as a government great insights on how we have to adapt our policy. And for those who are interested, we can always share our knowledge. So maybe this tool can become a European tool. Next to this, we have our starter kit, which is on the corner of this table in red, which companies can also order free of charge. It contains a lot of promotional items and nudging tools, but also good practices from companies. And we really believe within Sport Vlaanderen that motivating by inspiring is a very powerful and efficient tool. So since our launch a few weeks ago, over 600 companies have already ordered the starter kit. This is a real success, which also gives us an entry to connect with companies. And finally, as Philippe also said, we realized permanent installed running tracks next to business parks and also Zen Sport platforms. What is that? That is light sports infrastructure where employees from different companies can meet and sport together. I think we can say we are working hard to support companies in Flanders on this.
Okay, thank you. Maybe one more short question, since we're here in the context of the HEMA project. How do you see a link or responsibility that we have within Sports Vlaanderen to contribute or to make the gap between towards the European level with this?
Well, within Sport Vlaanderen, we are really believers of the European level. We were very pleased 3 years ago that EFCS asked us to be part of the HEMA consortium. And we are very pleased to play an active role in this program and to contribute in the aim to trigger sedentary lifestyles by promoting physical activities throughout the stages of lives and targets employees as a whole. We were able to have a valuable contribution to the project, of which the results will be presented today. Some challenges are awaiting us in the future, and personally, I'm convinced that cooperation on a European level will become even more important than it already is. Sharing knowledge and insights, creating scale advantages, bigger reaches and ranges. Personally, and also my colleagues, we are really believers.
Okay, thank you very much, Philippe. Okay, let's pass on to the last speaker in this roundtable, Mr. Philippe Amaral, Director of Policy and Development at the European Cyclist Federation. You're also very active on this field. Could you explain a bit more about your initiatives to contribute to sport at work or physical activity at work?
Sure. Thank you for having me. You're a lucky day today because I'm the third Philippe today. And how often does that happen? Never in my life have been in a conference with 3 Philips. Anyway, so it's good day to be Philippe. So I am Philippe with PH Amaral from the European Cyclist Federation. We are a federation, the largest federation in Europe and one of the biggest in the world of civil society organizations who are focused on promoting cycling in their countries. We're made up of nearly 70 members, most of them in Europe, but some worldwide. And collectively, our goal is to promote cycling as much as possible. At ECF, we do that by trying to promote cycling and influence cycling in EU policies, legislation, funding, ensuring that EU member states receiving funds for cycling. We are working with national governments on developing cycling strategies, etc. So really trying to ensure that cycling remains prominent and becomes a significant share of how people move around in Europe. We like to say that it's never been a better time to cycle, and that's really true. And has in workplaces, employers, it's never been a better time to introduce initiatives to improve and make cycling attractive for employees. The last year of the COVID pandemic has led to a boom in cycling. I'm sure you've read in the news and you've experienced yourself. Just around Europe, we have 4,000 to 5,000 kilometers of Corona cycle infrastructure. A lot of that is permanent. We have cities across Europe who are introducing cycling, not just in a small way, but in a major way. Paris is the one getting the most attention now, but we also see good changes in Barcelona. We've seen changes here in Brussels. We've seen changes in Milan, elsewhere in France, in the Nordic countries. Cycling is becoming quite important. And we've noticed people are cycling more because, at least during the pandemic, people saw it as a safe way to get exercise and move around during the lockdown. And people continue to see it as a safe way to get to work. Now that, well, hopefully, cross our fingers that we can start returning to workplaces here and there. So why cycling? I mean, I think we're all fans of cycling here. The benefits are obvious, I think, in a number of ways. One is it contributes to a lot less carbon emissions. In a year, it saves about 16 million tons of CO2. And that's the equivalent of the CO2 production of a country like Croatia. It cuts big time on air pollution, noise pollution. Cycling infrastructure, cycling lanes, pathways take a lot less space than roadways for automobiles. Saves a lot on fuel. Okay, you spend more on boxes of pasta at home, but otherwise you're saving a lot on fossil fuels. But really, it's health. It's the big one, and this is why it's one of the reasons why ECF is focusing on it. We see that it's a major contributor to decreasing chronic diseases. And what's important is that you don't need to do a lot of it. So when people think of cycling, they might think of the mammals, the middle-aged men in Lycra, of which I confess I do this occasionally on the weekends. But actually, a little bit every day counts. And we point to research that shows that cycling twice a day for about 11 minutes is enough, 5 days a week, is enough to fulfill, your basic minimal physical activity in the week. That's enough. Living in a city. My commute is 20 minutes each way, and lots of people commute less. So that's really, I think, a really major benefit of that. And it increases concentration at work. Point to research that shows, at least for kids in schools, kids who cycle concentrate more. And I would say the same is probably true for people who cycle to work as well. And it just takes less time. I was intrigued by the research presented earlier by the gentleman from Portugal about the data, how much time cycling takes. But in our experience and what all over Europe is that employees who cycle to work are very rarely ever late. Your commute takes 15 minutes all the time. You're never stuck in traffic unless you have a flat tire. That's a different story. But that doesn't happen so often. So really, cycling is something that we encourage all workplaces to invest in. Now at ECF, to address your question, what we do is coordinate a project called the Cycle Friendly Employer Certification Project. It's a formal certification that we do with partners in dozens of countries that provides workplaces who are interested in becoming cycling friendly with a formal recognition that they are cycling friendly. Just for example, off the top of my head, in Turkey, outside the European Union, Gaziantep, the Gaziantep Metropolitan Office, the Transport Department, they were given a certification because of bicycle parking infrastructure that they placed outside of their office for employees. it's things like that. There's a formal review process, but we encourage employers to do it. There are about 300 employers across Europe who have this certification across 14 countries. The benefits are many, and I've listed a bunch of them. One is there's a decrease in sickness costs. Companies save money because employees who cycle to work tend to take less sick days. There are increase in well-being scores. There's decreases in costs of infrastructure. It costs a lot less to put 10 or 15 or a little bit more good bike parking spots in your facility than to purchase land for 20 or 30 cars on your property. And then there are the additional benefits, the environmental benefits, the decrease in traffic congestion benefits. Cycling is we like to say, is a win-win-win for everybody, because it enables employers to encourage activity in their workers, and it contributes to, I think, a better workforce all around. There's a few things that employers can do. One is any employer can look into the cycle-friendly employer certification scheme and encourage that. There's a few other things. One is when it comes to taking advantage of fiscal premiums and fiscal incentives. At ECF, we have a tool on our website called Money for Bikes. And it's a tool that enables you to search for fiscal incentives in every EU country that would enable a person to sign up for an incentive that would provide them either with access to a cargo bike, for example, or money to purchase an e-bike or some kind of incentive. So we encourage employers to participate in that if they don't already. For example, here in Belgium, if you're cycling to work, you can benefit from an incentive in your commute, and that really helps. And for some people, that's encouraging. Another thing employers can do is to put the necessary things at their workplace to encourage people to cycle. So put a place to park your bike that's safe, that's close to the entrance, that is not tucked away at the end of the parking lot, but it's right at the front door. If you can make space for it at your workplace, provide a changing room, provide a shower. These are actually, as the gentleman before said, really low-cost ways that employers can make cycling attractive. This would be for people who maybe not cycling 5 kilometers in, but are cycling from longer. And then another thing is companies might take advantage of bike leasing schemes to enable employees who don't have a bike or would like an e-bike or a cargo bike, take advantage of that. It's a lot more productive for the employee than the company car scheme. And it's a way for employers to also bestow extra benefits, make the workplace more attractive, be providing a bicycle as well. So yeah, these are all things that are part of the cycle-friendly employer certification, part of our ongoing encouragement for employers to boost cycling at their workplaces.
Well, thank you very much, Philippe. Sounds very promising and very interesting to take a look at your website and to gain some more information. A small round of applause, please. Thank you.
Thank you at all, and I want to thanks to my teams who look at it online. So
I don't know where the camera is, but if you wave in general, they'll definitely see. Okay, I would like to invite all of you, since we have not been giving a good example, to raise from your chair, have a small coffee break, 15 minutes. Also, the people back home, please stand up a bit, walk a bit, and we'll invite you back in 15 minutes. In the meantime, if you have questions, you can use this moment, these 15 minutes as well, to ask questions to the speakers. People back home can put it on chat and we will definitely come back to you. Where the coffee break, it's in the beginning in the reception where you came earlier. This dice will be there as well. It's a nudging tool that Philip mentioned. Feel free to try it out and get your activity levels up during the break. Thank you.
C'est lui, là. C'est sport extrémité.
Ok, ouais.
Et c'est sport. Attends.
Eux, ils ont été qui comme
Oui, oui, t'inquiète, t'inquiète. To all esteemed participants to this conference today. First of all, once again, thank you to be here. So my name is Rodolphe Douaté. I'm working for Sportless Citizenship. We are partners in the WAC project, and I have the honor to moderate this roundtable with our 4 really interesting speakers. So what we wanted to do with this roundtable is actually to confront 4 different areas. We have a representative from the world of companies, for the companies of sports, from the European Commission, and from the health sector. They will introduce themselves. I think they're way better positioned to do that than I am. But what I wanted to say introduces this roundtable is what is interesting in that event is that we were all confronted to the COVID-19 situation. Either the participants, the speakers, the organizations, everyone, as organization, as individuals. And we all faced the same difficulties, the same situation. And what is interesting is to see how our speakers, their institution, their organization, their members, and also their workers, of course, dealt with the COVID-19 crisis, and how active mobility and how physical activity in the workplace were impacted by the COVID-19 crisis. So without any further ado, I will start with the first question to give more time to our speakers to really get into the topic. So this first question is really be made as a diagnosis. Why? Because we wanted to discuss our speaker vision of company sports and mobility at work. So the different benefits, good practices, and success story, and also have their opinion about the state of play of physical activity at work and the impact of COVID-19 on policies and program, either implemented, but also to be implemented in the future. So that's why we're going to start with Ms. Florence Avenoud from the European Commission. So you are the head of unit of the European Commission and the sports unit. And the European Commission was, of course, one of the key actors in answering and finding solution to the crisis in many different levels. And so the question we could ask to you is, did the COVID-19 impact the policies and recommendation made by the European Commission in terms of physical activity promotion? And in that sense, how did the European Commission integrate the COVID-19 questions into in the support program for the sport movement? Thank you.
Thank you. You already heard from me before, so I pick up now and let's look closer into how we have responded to the COVID-19 crisis. And I will not speak from how the Commission itself in its daily offices, of course, has responded, because this is a story, as probably many other organizations and companies and public institutions had to deal with. But probably what is more interesting from you is to hear from me about what were the challenges in policy and how has this happened. And I can say it probably happened in phases, because this was probably the learning lesson that we all had. It wasn't only what do we need to do to react, but this was a crisis that was totally new to us, and we didn't know where it was leading us. If I take myself personally back to the day that I picked up my things and said I have to go down in lockdown and I can't go to the office on Monday, I literally thought this was for 2 weeks. And if we tell it now, this looks totally stupid, but this was how I felt. And our instant reaction was, of course, to get the staff safe, to know and to try and get Europe continuing to work. And when it came to that, first concern was to make sure that people who are in Erasmus Plus projects were okay. Because in sport, we don't have individual mobility, but there are partnerships, there are many meetings, there's a lot of cooperation across Europe. So also, like many other parts of the Erasmus Plus program, we had to make sure that everybody was fine, that everybody was safe, and that somehow then the project could continue. So our initial response has been to give more time, to prolong the project, or to allow them to suspend them and pick them back up. And I think also this was the first reaction, because in hindsight, there is still a lot of hope in what we did, that this was going to be very temporary. Now we know this is not true. And in the meantime, by suspending, we have also, of course, like everybody else, more and more taken steps to enter into the digital world. So more and more meetings have taken online. And of course, this has also been a learning path for us to see, well, what do we want to take to the new normal? Because there is probably, we have to realize we will not go back to the old normal as we knew it. So we also have to learn, for instance, in European projects, how can we organize partnerships, combining physical meetings, physical cooperation with virtual. And probably the most heard reaction is that people want to meet in person. The Teams meetings, Zoom meetings, virtual meetings are very helpful, but they are not the real deal. They cannot compensate for all the networking, the personal encounters that we would otherwise have. So this is something, a very important lesson to take also to the future of how we can design European cooperation and partnerships. But that was not all. We have also, at least in the sport field, initiated a study to look at the impact of COVID on the sports sector. And this study is already terribly outdated, of course, because it was done in 2020. And there were at that time 3 scenarios: low impact, medium, and high. And I think we're already way beyond the high. But interestingly enough, and some of the earlier speakers said it, there was a big fear that the economy would crash, and actually quite the opposite is happening. And there is, the economics are doing quite well, and there are rather shortages because the demands are so high. So we have to learn. And these studies, they are outdated, but at least they give us some insight into what we have experienced in the past, and where probably many of the clubs, the federations, the industry is struggling. But this work isn't finished, so we're continuing. We have set up an expert group looking into the effects of COVID, and also how we can support member states and private organizations to cope with it. Looking into what are the main problems, what are the main challenges. And for instance, what we learned is that many sport clubs are actually worried about losing their members, not coming back, which is maybe as important as the financial losses, because this is something that we know, and we know what we can and cannot do about that. But the loss of members is very worrying also from a health policy perspective, because we are all talking, how can we get people active? And then if we learn that actually the opposite is happening, that people who used to practice sport have stopped doing that and are losing the practices, this can be very worrying, especially if we look at sport clubs and their social function, or people who otherwise have not much means, they are completely losing out. And if they're in disadvantage, these disadvantages are even growing stronger. So there are huge concerns, but this is something we can facilitate in the European context, getting the member states together and say, what are we doing in the different countries, so that we can also learn from the best and seek inspiration from the best. Maybe also a few words on the European Union, the European Commission beyond the sport unit, because of course we are one of the almost 1,000 units in the European Commission. And a lot more has happened than only in the sport unit. A lot more possibilities and opportunities are also there for the sport sector, because you may be interested in funding on regional development plans, sport facilities, sport infrastructure can have their place in this. Also in research, there is research, very scientific, but there's also social research, which can be useful and very interesting for the sports sector to follow. And all these funds have been boosted and very much in mind of supporting Europe to get out of the health crisis. So sport, physical activity are perfectly placed to be a partner in that, but also to facilitate the twin transition, as we call it, towards greener and digital. And again, this is also, as we understand, challenges that sport is also facing. How can we make sport events more sustainable? How can infrastructure be renovated and made more sustainable, or how can the space that they have be used for different purposes, including to host, for instance, green energy plants like solar plants or something. So there are many opportunities in that. And I was actually yesterday again checking the figures, because I always blink twice when I look at the money that the EU has made available for projects and funds. This is definitely the biggest ever. And the multi-annual financial framework has gone up to 1,200 billion euro. And Yves was saying the sport was winning. And I mean, indeed, Erasmus Plus has been one of the programs that has doubled in size, but not the only one. So there has really been made a very big effort to get Europe on track. And in addition, there was 806 billion put for Next Generation EU, which is a special fund for the member states to dedicate to recovery. And I invite you also to follow this and collectively to pass the message that this can be useful for sport as well. In total, that makes 2 trillion. And actually, when you look up in Google what trillion means, it is really a lot. So I'll stop here, but there's a lot of funds made available for sport. And we have made some guidance papers, some background documents to also help the sports sector understand which are the programs, what are the criteria, how can we make use to that, specifically tailored for your sector.
Thank you very much. And what we can remember from what you say is actually the part about the learning curve, because it was the COVID-19 situation on active mobility, on sport at the workplace, has been a learning curve for the company themselves, for the workers, for the government, for the governmental organization that needed to take this question into account and try to develop policies to enter that. And maybe to link it a bit to why do we need those policies, we can go to our next speaker, which is Mrs. Nathalie Farpour-Lambert. And that is more directly on the health sector, with your work on the Advisory Council and Senior Consultant for the World Health Organization, and you work on the COVID-19 team. So the question we have for you regarding our topic today would be, because we saw during the COVID-19 crisis that numerous studies, medical papers that we do not understand, most of us, many articles were made to explore the links between physical activity and between recovery to the COVID-19, for instance. For instance, they said that being physically active could prevent stronger cases of COVID-19, for instance. So from a medical and health point of view, what could you tell us about this link? And more importantly, how can we use those reports, studies, or elements promoting physical activity to steer policies and recommendations toward more active mobility and more promotion of physical activity, especially in the workplace?
Thank you very much. So initially I'm a pediatrician. Nobody knows that, but I'm a specialist in public health and global health policy. And I've worked since many years in promoting physical activity and, for health, but also for the prevention of obesity. First of all, I would like just to remind you that we have a lot of strong evidence that physical activity has benefits for health, particularly contribute to the prevention and control of non-communicable disease. With COVID-19, we are tackling a communicable disease, but in the same time, we face a pandemic also of non-communicable disease, including cancer, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, but also mental disorders like depression, anxiety, dementia. And as I said before, we need also now to include obesity in part of the NCD, and the European Commission recognized obesity as an NCD this year. It reduced also the overall mortality and the risk of premature death. So this year, the World Health Organization has produced fact sheets on the physical activity in EU member states in the European region, which showed that 60% of countries reported that they had national guidance or a program to promote active
travel to work, and 74% reported that they had national guidance or program to promote physical activity at the workplace. So I think these are interesting results, and we see also an interest in promoting physical activity at the workplace in the European Union. What do we know about the COVID-19 and chronic disease or non-chronic disease? There are now many reports showing an association between chronic disease and severe forms of COVID-19, and especially diabetes, obesity, and cardiovascular disease. We also know that age play a role, and the sex, the male gender. We know now that the lack of physical activity is clearly associated with a higher risk of non-communicable disease. And today there were little data on the benefits of physical activity in preventing severe forms of COVID-19. So we have now a few data, and then one of the biggest study includes 48,000 adults. It's a US study, and it has shown that the regular physical activity may reduce the risk of hospitalization, admission to intensive care unit, or death in patients who had COVID-19. And there several mechanisms have been discussed in the prevention of severe forms of COVID-19 by regular physical activity. We know that physical activity improves the immune function, and those who are regularly active have a lower incidence of and intensity and symptoms from various viral infections. That was already known. We know that physical activity can reduce the risk of systemic inflammation, and in severe forms of COVID-19, we know that there is an association between systemic inflammation and lung damages, but also vascular damages. And finally, we know that exercise benefits cardiovascular health and function, lung function, and also muscle strength, and it can play a role in preventing the development of severe forms of COVID-19. So that's what we know at the moment. And so it's, I think, very important to keep promoting physical activity for health in the context of the COVID-19 pandemics. I wish the pandemic would have stopped to now, but unfortunately we see that we are facing another wave of COVID-19 in many European countries. So I think it's still important to invest in physical activity, even if it's still difficult.
Thank you. And with what you said, we really have now the health context and why should we promote physical activity? And as you said, sometimes it's really difficult for participants, for people like ourselves working in the sector, to actually understand why do we need to promote physical activity. And the addition of the health sector in that sense is really important. So thank you very much for all this information that I'm sure all the participants online and on site will take home. So now with the overall context, we can go to, let's say, our speakers that are really, really in the core of the topic today. So we will start with Jan-Willem Landré. You are Program Manager for Vital Companies at VNO NCW. I hope I'm saying that right, but I'm really not sure. So you will explain a bit what you're doing and what's your role. But from my understanding, you're really representing the companies in the Netherlands. So you're in a sense, or actually, if I'm going quickly and making a small raccourci, as we say, you were really in the front line when it comes to answering the question of the companies in the situation. So the idea and the question we wanted to ask you today was really, in our opinion, new strategy were needed to balance the need to ensure safety and well-being of employees and at the same time, the sustainability of the company itself. So what were the major organizational management or work changes that you saw, and how did it impact the practice of sports and wellness at sports? That's a hard one, yeah.
That's better. I hope you understand my first words. First of all, that VNO, NSWE and all those letters, that's the Dutch Employers Association. So I think you have one in every country. This is the Dutch one. On this program, working together with the Ministry of Public Health, actually, we're funded by that one. And actually, I'm feeling a little bit of an outsider here because you're talking a lot about physical exercise, sports. And what we're doing with our program, it's called Vital Companies. Vital means the vitality of the employees, not the financial situation of the company or anything like that. What we do, we aim at more than only physical education. We have a program where we try to inspire employers to invest in the vitality of their employees. And we're addressing actually 5 themes: physical education, but also nutrition, a very important one, mental balance. It's already mentioned a few times in terms of yoga, of learning to relax or dealing with stress, that kind of thing. And also smoking, alcohol, drugs. Those are the smaller parts of the company. We offer a few services. We believe in testimonials of companies who did it before, who are showing you the way, who are telling their own stories. We also heard something about a survey. We also have several scans, a scan for the entrepreneur himself or herself, but also a scan for employees, where we measure a little bit the vitality of the employees. But we also ask them, what do you think of the offer the company is presenting you on these topics? And we also ask them, where lies your need? What do you want in this vitality program? What we also do after a company has come to us, fill out a scan, we provide in several consultations so we can help them to start a program. And what we also do, and I think I was listening jealously to my colleagues from Vlaanderen with the active workplace. But what we do on top is we also offer them a certificate of vitality. We call it in Dutch, Vignet Vitaal Bedrijf. You can apply it with our organization. We have, of course, several standards. And we see, because now we only launched it a few months ago, and even in this time, especially due to a tight job market, a lot of companies want to show to potential employees, I'm interested in your vitality, and maybe that's the reason why you consider coming to work for us. So that's what we do in a more broad perspective. And then on COVID, it had a personal change for us because we planned to go live in April 2020. But we didn't, actually. Because, and some people already said something about it, if we still can remember it, what you just said also, every company was in some state of frenzy. What's going to happen? We have to start working at home. What's going to happen to my business? A lot of businesses went down from one to the other moment, but a lot of other businesses, they went up. So they were all not in a stable situation. So we waited for October 2020 to launch the program. But as every crisis offers also opportunities, we did something else and we learned a lot. In April, instead of launching the program, we launched a small initiative which is called in Dutch, thuiswerken is topsport. Working at home is really hard work. And now there are a lot of programs and a lot of things, but because the disadvantage was of COVID, that a lot of sports programs at companies stopped. In Holland, you have a lot of companies like big banks who want to, maybe AMRO does it, they prepare for a recreational run. Damloop in Amsterdam, for those who know it, it's a run of 10 miles, 16K, and a lot of people participate in it and are educated, are trained to participate in it. Important programs for those organizations. But what we learned is that in those organizations, only the people who are already running are participating. And I think that's the main issue, what we also have to address here. But what we did in the platform was we offered small physical exercises. We even used, no, that's not good. We even asked paralyzed basketball players to perform exercises, which you can do sitting down. So I'm not going to show them now. That would be a little bit silly, but you can see them online. And with the message with it, if you're working at home, and that was a real learning point from us. I think you just suggested it also from scientific evidence. If you're working at home, don't go sitting there 8 hours in a row, not even 4 hours in a row. Don't go thinking that with 1 hour hard sport, you can eliminate 8 hours of sitting. There's more and more scientific evidence that that doesn't work like that. So start thinking about small measures. And then I come to what did companies do in COVID time. Start thinking about setting your Outlook or whatever system you use, not on a standard meeting for an hour, but for 50 minutes. Start thinking about introducing program because everybody, you have more attention online actually. Start thinking about small physical exercises, which you can do every hour. And we did a lot of things about nutrition, about work-life balance, that sort of thing. And what we learned, because we also do the scans, we only do them from here, so I'm a little bit jealous of the numbers my colleague of Vlaanderen mentioned, but we got a data of around 9,000 employees who did our scans. And we see a few things. First of all, the first thing we see is that the most need for a program on vitality is still on physical education. Actually, it's a little bit higher on physical education, sponsored by work, outside of work. I think the colleague of the person of Orange already thought of someone else about reasons why not to participate with your colleagues. But the second thing which they all ask about is nutrition and mental balance. Mental balance is a very important one. But another interesting point is that there is in our scan, you get an interactive dashboard as an employer with all the privacy guaranteed, of course. You can also see the difference between people who are working at home and people who are working at the office. And on the fields of physical exercise or nutrition, there is almost no difference. But at one field, and that's not to be solved with sports or anything, there is a big difference, and that's between the work-life balance. We saw an increase in a need for a work-life balance program. So that's the other part of, is there a problem or not, of 100% in people who are working at home versus people who are still working at the office or at the company. So that's an important point to address. And one other thing, because we are working for, especially for companies with around 10 to 200 employees. We chose that because what we see in Holland in the big companies, there's already attention for either sports or physical exercise or vitality. And there's a lot of budget, and they have a professional HR department. In small companies, they don't. They start wondering, I know somewhere, I feel that I have to do something about it, but where do I start? What does it cost? What does it, what do I get out of it as owner of this business? So we have several business cases for that. So that's why we provided our program. And what you see in the smaller companies, they do the scan, but they also start working on their own with all kinds of small measures. And I think that's really important to realize. And one other thing is that what we learned from those companies, everything you offer has to be plug and play. If you have any distraction in the things you're offering to those companies to start working, either it is on sports or physical activity or vitality, if you have any distraction, they quit right away because it's not the problem of the day. So you have to do some kind of stress test. Is that what you're offering, plug and play? But that's an important one. And last but not least, the foundation where I'm working for is also hosting the European Company Sports Games next year. So I would like some attention from all of you there. And I hope to see a lot of you in June in Holland. And I say it because COVID is not going away. But if we look back at June this year, in Holland, there was sports actually without any restriction. I assume it will be also there in June. But the time to enter, to fill out your entrance forms for these games are now in winter. So please look a little bit further and all come to Holland next year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was really interesting, and it shows that indeed the employers and the reunion of employers really have, by implementing programs, by developing programs, can have really a role to play, but also a capacity to develop programs that are made for the companies themselves. You were mentioning SMEs, bigger companies with different situation. And I think it's also really interesting to take that into account. And with our last speaker, we go really in focus on the sports sector. And I'm lucky enough to work with Fezi on so many topics. And by working basically in the same offices, I saw that you conducted several studies at the beginning towards your members, but also a more generic public, to first study and try and find solution to the COVID-19 crisis in the sports sector. So I think what the first question would be, what can you tell us about those surveys? What were the results? And also, in your opinion, what was the sports sector and your members, of course, impacted by the COVID-19 crisis? By the COVID-19 crisis. Thank you, Jérôme.
Thank you, Rodolphe, and thank you, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Well, that the sporting goods industry has been hit by the COVID-19 crisis, I think, like every sector, is understatement. But I would summarize my my intervention today with the word paradox, because I think, like everybody noticed, there are many things that were a big paradox during this COVID-19 crisis. Every time a challenge popped up, it also showed on the other side an opportunity. And I think, you know, if we summarize the priorities of the European Commission that were announced just before the COVID-19 crisis, which were digitalization and the Green Deal, we see that these things have been accelerated and incubated with the COVID-19 crisis. And the same thing goes for our members. So I'm here today speaking on behalf of the sporting goods industry. So our members are directly sporting goods companies such as Nike, Adidas, Puma, but also retailers such as Foot Locker, but also many SMEs, national sporting goods federations, and so on. But I'm also speaking today on behalf of that industry, but also on as an employer. We are a small office based in Brussels. We are representing the interest of the sporting goods industry, but we're also an office with 6 colleagues, young, dynamic, digital native colleagues that also had to face never-ending team meetings, and this could, you know, very well impact their mental well-being, despite their, you know, young dedication. And I would say that, you know, us as an office, and we heard it already, or our members were hit by COVID-19 in a positive and in a very negative way. So first of all, I mean, of course, you know, the closure of brick and mortar stores, the virtual cancellation of the winter sports season last year, the fact that team sports in many cases were closed down, indoor sports, gym and fitness sector. I mean, this has all had a tremendous impact on our members in turnover, of course, but also on their employees. Take the Adidas headquarters, they have around 3,000 employees there. They had to close it down. They have a sports campus there. They had to close it down. So, I mean, we were affected like everybody. On the other side, we also saw suddenly that our cycling sector picked up by 60% in 1 year. And so, you know, there were many drivers and opportunities that we did not anticipate. We also noticed that people started working from home. In the beginning, of course, this meant that the employer did not have any positive impact on their physical activity levels or exercise anymore, and there was no mobility. People were not coming to work. But actually, we found out that people were discovering their surroundings, going for a walk. You know, I mean, after months of lockdowns in various member states, you know, people were happy to go outside again, just walk the dog or have a run, or, you know, they could not play football anymore, but at least they could go and run into the parks. So it's a big paradox. On the other side, for our members, the closure of brick and mortar stores, they lost around 30% of their turnovers. But then again, online sales skyrocketed, and we managed to cover 60% of those losses just in online sales. All these opportunities also raise new challenges. Sustainability, how can we make sure that CO2 emissions during all these online sales remain at a stable level or go down, especially now after COVID. But long story short, the industry was hit hard. We are trying to adapt to this new normal. The conference is called post-COVID. Unfortunately, we're still right in the middle of it, especially in Belgium, Germany, and so on. So the effect will continue. But then again, I feel that the industry, but also the people are adapting and are trying to find solutions. Some of our members, for example, have made available a lot of online tools for customers, but also employees to remain active at home with free apps and things like that. So again, digitalization really picked up. So yeah, I would say that this is a little bit how our sector has experienced the last 18 months. We'll see how it goes.
Thank you a lot, Jerome. And so the question of paradox that you mentioned is actually really interesting, because that's what we touched at the beginning, because we were all victims of the COVID-19 crisis, but also actors. And with the organization, we try to find solutions. As you said, you were as well an employers as a representation of other employers. So we have different elements, and one paradox is I'm actually the moderator, but also the guardian of time of the conference, and we also going a bit forward. So I will maybe cut a bit the second question I wanted to ask you to maybe focus on one element. Indeed, the second question we wanted to do is to see the difficulties. Why is it hard in the COVID-19 situation? Well, actually not post anymore. You were right about that. But in the COVID-19 situation, why is it hard to promote physical activity? And Mrs. Van Hout actually told at the beginning that indeed 13% of EU citizens who practice physical activity do it in the workplace. So to maybe to cut it a bit short and to make sure to finish on time, I would like to ask you, in your opinion, what is the main reason people do not practice sport or physical activity enough at work? What is, in your opinion, the main reason? If you would really find one big reason, and maybe on another conference, another project that will be submitted to the Erasmus+, we'll find solution to those big difficulties. So in the same order, so Ms. Van Hout first, maybe.
Thank you. I may not want to speculate on why it's so low, but I can offer a solution in the sense that what you have discussed today and listening to the presentation have been really very convincing stories and good practices about how you can activate people, and that it sounds encouraging and positive, and it made me feel like I want to be more active at work. And I think if this kind of practices deserve to be widely spread, and I'm sure that what you do in offering the companies how to do it in such a positive way and showing these benefits, that can really make a difference. And if you're successful, and we have a conference in a couple of years, it is really post-COVID, and this 13% must be way higher. So well done.
Thank you, and also crossing fingers here. So maybe Natalie, if you have the same thing, one difficulties and maybe one solution to offer.
Yes, very quickly, I think we have to think about the COVID-19 context, because we are still not out, and the difficulty of mixed on-site and home and work at home. I think we have to, working at home, managers have to improve the organization of work. And I was the head of the COVID-19 task force for Geneva State for 18 months. And I think we all know how hard it is to do all these meetings, virtual meetings, and it's very often going from one to the other without any break. And so organizing the work seems to me important, also allowing the employees to take some time to have a break, to do physical activity we can also organize small physical activity break, and at the World Health Organization is what we do. So now they have introduced some exercises, few minutes between meetings to keep people active. And when people go to work on site, I think traveling to work by bike or by foot can really help. And because we know people don't have time, don't take the time for physical activity, so at least they have traveled actively to work. But I hope we will all get back to travel actively to work, but it's maybe not the case for the next months.
Okay, first of all, I think we learned a lot from your presentation from the University of Portugal. We asked a lot of detailed questions. But there's one question before. And that's, why does the employer, why does he want to do it or not? And I think there's a huge lack of knowledge on that side. For instance, we used in our campaign, we used the concept of vitality as a business case. It sounds a little bit harsh. We're telling them, we're asking them, you are used to buy a truck or something big machinery for, let's say, 800,000 euros. The first thing you do is, what about maintenance? What about improvement? But if you have an employee, which you pay his salary and all kind of other expenses for 10 years, you're on the same amount. And the only thing you do is, well, if you're a good employer, you sometimes send him to a training or something. What you don't do is develop a vitality program. What you don't do is invest in his vitality. And we used to say, go from prevention to a potential, because a lot of employers are looking at prevention of sick leave or other things. But our claim is also, if you start investing in vitality, you get more of the potential of an employee. It sounds a little bit business-like, but you get a higher productivity, you get better quality. Oh yes, and along the way, your sick leave is probably diminishing too. And I think there is a lot of work to do on that side, especially in small companies, and small companies host the most employees, at least in Holland. I don't know how it is in other countries. So I think that's one important thing. And the other is what we were talking about, sports versus small physical activities. Choose those kind of activities where everybody can participate. There's a lot to say about must participate or can participate. That's another question which we want to address here, I think. That goes a little bit further, but use a wide array of activities, also on the physical side, where also people who are not really in the sporting, not really the sporting kind, can participate. And don't start aiming at, we're going to do that marathon with the company, because then you know for sure that only 1 or 2% are going to participate.
Indeed, that was actually one of the key aspects when we developed on the WAC that we will talk afterwards. When we developed the elements on the WAC was to make sure to respect the level of physical activity of each of the person within the company, and to try to create programs and investment. I really like the terms that you use, the vitality investments, to do the investment and to do the proper for each individuals. And so last but not least, of course, Jérôme, the same questions, one main barriers and maybe one solution that you can think of at the moment.
Yes. When you're last, it's always the same. Everything has been said already. But if I may add something else, I think, and that's personal employer experience as well. I think the problem is here, we're talking a lot about theories, and we all acknowledge all these theories. We acknowledge the benefits, they're written over there. The employers in theory know about them, the employees know about them. But then there's real life and there's inertia. People just tend to stay in their comfort zone, the employer and the employee. And I would say that this is mainly due to social, societal, but also company culture. If the C-level is not engaged in it and just spends 10 minutes talking about this, there's no discussion in companies on physical activity and sports. I mean, it is mentioned, everybody acknowledges, but when we sit down with our employees, in the end, we only talk about salary. We only talk about salary because these are the concrete benefits that people want. And if we say, do you want a gym card and things like that? Yes, but that's not important. They are faced with a choice between the car and the bike, between physical activity vouchers and lunch vouchers. And that should not be the case. Actually, all these things should be complementary. And it should be part of the company, but also of the society culture, because we're only talking about growth, about economics and things like that. And so in the end, we have to sort of break this theory discussion and make it really more concrete in companies, in society. So it should be in the narrative of trade unions. There should be incentives from the public sector, tax incentives, whatever. There should be incentives from the employers, but also willingness from the employees as well. I would say that this is mainly the bottleneck that I see. There are, of course, many more awareness raising, the lack of criteria, and this is also why WAC is so important, certifications, harmonization, etc., to make things more visible for employers and employees. And basically, I would say that this is my opportunity is to develop things official criteria, such as the WAC certification, that in the end would clarify things for all the stakeholders involved, so that it would become easier to know about these things. I heard that 74% of member states have a guidance on physical activity at the workplace. We are a company in Belgium. I have no idea where to look for. So I will definitely reach out to you for that, but thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jerome. And actually, I couldn't dream of a better conclusion and transition, because the next one is going to be the presentation of the WAC project. So thank you for this, actually doing what I was supposed to do and way better than I did. So thank you a lot, Jerome. A big round of applause for our speakers. Thank you very much for your really interesting take on the topic and your expertise on that. It was really valuable for the project and the participants. So thank you again. Simon, of course, for the overall moderation of the conference. Thank you.
Okay, also from my side, thank you very much for this panel, for this roundtable. Extremely interesting. I also want to make use of this opportunity to wish Mr. Jan-Willem Landré best of luck with the organization of the European Company Sport Games. I was honored, and I had the pleasure to co-coordinate the games in 2017 in Ghent, and it was an extremely nice experience. So best of luck with that. So we have been talking about the HEMA project. We have been talking about the impact of COVID on work life. But the European Federation for Company Sports is also in charge of the WAC project, the Workplace Active Certification. So I would like to invite Mr. Gur van Heuze and Mr. Michael Groos, the Operation Director of Evalio, to the floor to tell us a bit more about this project.
Thank you, Simon. Sorry, I'm coming back. After the EMA project, now I'm talking about the WAC project, the other baby of EFCS regarding the Erasmus Plus project. It's the most recent one, as it started nearly 2 years ago now. It will finish by the end of the next year. It is still an Erasmus Plus project, and we are in a team of 8 partners. In these teams, we are experts of standards, for example, with Evalio Switzerland Association, Slovenian Olympic Committee, researchers from University of Copenhagen, from Harvard College of Ghent. We have sport and citizenship think tank. We have employers representatives of the sporting goods industry with FESI. We have Chamber of Commerce of Corinth, and a lot of additional and cross-sectorial approach, again, around a physical activity at work. This project was the follow-up of a previous one called EMOX project. And in one of the conclusions of this EMOX project, it leads to say that there will be a need and to create a kind of certification standard label. You call it by what you want at that time. And why it is worth of interest, these certifications, at the end of EMOX and the beginning of WAC projects, we thought that it was interesting because it is a way for companies to be recognized and to be rewarded for their commitment into physical activity. It's a way also to showcase their well-being strategy and to improve their communications to attract new talents, for example. It is also a way, this certification, to capitalize on good practices and to be also in consistency with local and national initiatives. We know that there are existing standard certifications that already happen, but we think that there is a place also for the European level of this certification. So this Erasmus Plus project was the occasion to manage that. And finally, it will be also a way to help the companies, as Jérôme said, organizing sport and physical activities in company. It's not the priority and it's not the daily job of an employer. So the certifications could be a way also to increase their knowledge and to help into designing their politic about sport. The concrete of WAC is really to create this certification. By the end of next year, we will have the first rewarded companies with the WAC certifications. But in our philosophy, and Michael will explain to you more in details the methodological approach, it's not only giving a stamp and saying that you are friendly around sport and physical activities. When creating this certification and once we discuss with the partners from the teams, we decide to have 3 ingredients. At first, the credibility, and Michael will explain to you the approach that we imagine for this project, but also to be in line with the reality of the companies. You know, with the European Federation or the French Federation or the other national members of the FCS, we're in daily contacts with companies. And when we discuss with human resources managers, with CEOs or other directors, we know that sport is not their day-to-day priority. So we are not here to disturb them, we are here to help them. The previous roundtable was here to say that there is an investment in organizing sport and physical activity. So with this certification, it will be an occasion for that. So I let the floor to Michael to share with us the methodological and the scientific approach of this project. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Gervin. So I will start by just saying some words about Evaleo. So we are based in Switzerland. Our mission is to promote physical activity, active life and healthy lifestyles. And we were founded in 2011. I was there from the start. My president is here, Gabriel Mesmer. And finally, because of the competencies, the experts, the people available, we started to work on some solutions to promote physical activity. And very quickly, we became experienced of building projects, programs, and solutions with multi-partner and cross-sectoral approaches. So we had the opportunity to build a program with the support of IOC called the Global Active City, which is an international certification for cities that want to promote physical activity and sport for all, as well as another program with FISU, the university sport, called FISU Healthy Campus. So I start with that because finally, with the 2 examples we had over the years, we recognize the fact that a certification, it's good not because it's a certification, but finally it's a tool, it's an incentive to do something and to reach the final goal. So I can call it like a collaborative framework. So a framework useful to make people work together to build bridges between the different sectors, between different kind of organizations, and of course, between different needs of the people and stakeholders engaged. So I will speak about this framework and the benefits that we consider for the certification with 5 points. The first one is to transform the field experiences of all the companies or organizations that practice and implement physical activity in the workplace, to transform that into principles and good practices. So to learn from the experience, to know how to transform that in good practices, best practices, guidelines. So to learn from the experience. So for that, we are happy to have 26 participating organizations. We call them the pioneers. And I think it was a great added value planned in the beginning of the project to make sure that we can try to discuss, exchange with those organizations to know what happened and to know how to benefit from their experience in the final product. And the idea, of course, is to make it sustainable, of course, after the European projects, not only for the 2 years of the project, to make sure that it will continue. The second one is to being able to organize and structure the use of those field experiences. And of course, the collection of evidences and the work of the universities and the scientists involved. So for that, we were happy to work with Mr. Adam Evans, Mr. Stefano De Dominicis from the University of Copenhagen, as well as with Frank van Delle from the Artevelde University of Applied Sciences. So they were able to manage a great state of the art, collecting some good practices, evidences, but also just to analyze some existing certification schemes to use that as a basis for the building of the certification and the content. The third one is to the certification. This framework can facilitate collective participative approaches. So with our experience, we tried to impact the project together with EFCS and all the partners to make sure that we can maximize the contribution of each organizations, but not only organizations, the people, because we have all different skills, experience, and finally to use that to have a final good product together. It's not always easy, so you need some methodologies and processes to make sure that we can maximize the contribution. And we were able also to engage a group of 50 experts coming from different sectors, of course, from the participating organizations, from NGOs, from the education sector and the sports sector. So a group of 50 experts that were engaged through a round of comments, written comments, and after that 5 experts meeting by video conference to make sure that we can also benefit from their added value and their positioning related to our proposal. The fourth one is, of course, you said at Gervan, to recognize and value the efforts made and the results achieved by the organization. So generally, when we speak about the certification, we think of, okay, the label, the certificate, the diploma, and how we can communicate. But you can see here that it's much more than that. Of course, it's part of it because it's a good incentive. It's important in terms of motivation to do more, but it's not the final goal, the certificate itself. And the final one, perhaps the most important, is to enable networking and sharing of knowledge and best practices. And we had this experience with the Global Active City and the Healthy Campus and much more others also, is when you have a common vocabulary, a common framework, common references together, it's much more easier to start speaking together, to share knowledge, share experiences, say, okay, how you manage to engage the leadership of your organization. Okay, we did this way, etc., etc. So, of course, this networking, sharing of knowledge and best practices will last much more longer than the European projects, and we are so happy to have also universities engaged because they are great contributors in terms of sharing of knowledge. I will finalize with that because now I think it's time to hear the experience of some of the participating organizations. So thank you very much, and I let you announce the final part of this meeting.
Thank you. Indeed, let's take it back from theory to practice. And as Mr. Gross has mentioned, there were 26 pioneers participating in this phase of the project. We have the honor to have 3 of them physically present here today. So I invite you to take a seat in front, Ms. Lisa Umer, Ms. Heidi, and Mr. David Lipkens. So now we know a bit more about the theory of the project, the role of the pioneers, but I would like to hear from you personally, what's your view and what benefits of such a certificate? What could they offer to you as an organization? And would like to give the floor first to Ms. Lisa Umer, CEO of Regmatern, please.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Lisa Ulmer. I'm president of Regmatern. We are in Strasbourg, France. We are a distributor of heating, air conditioning, and renewable energy products. My father created the company in 1963. So this afternoon, I'm going to tell you how and why we implemented sport at work since 15 years ago. So when me, my sister, and my husband overtook the company, Regmatern, in 2005, we started to develop the firm, and rapidly we needed to hire more and more employees. And we observed, because of this quick development, some new problems, like tension between new and existing employees, tension between young and older staff, stress, back pain, overweight due to sedentary behavior, and lots of mistakes at work because of a lack of communication. So we thought how to solve these problems, and we thought about sport. Why sport? Because for us, sport brings together all the most important values. Sports improves the physical and mental health. It's unifying for a group. It creates a positive state of mind, and it gives a desire of performance. So the first decision we took were to hire a coach, a fitness coach, and to create a small fitness room. But we didn't have much money at this time. So we began our sport programs with only some used equipment and with 2 simple cabin showers. The coach was for us very important because he helped us to motivate the team to begin the sport, and he allowed us to reconnect with sport without the risk of injuries after a bad move, for example. The positive result of this sport at work were quickly visible. So it was better health condition, less sick leave and less stress, more optimistic mindset, more collaboration and more cohesion between all employees, well-being, and also better quality of service and more satisfaction among our customers. With the sport, the Regma team was born. The sport classes have never stopped and are still appreciated by everyone at the company. All these factors created a really good atmosphere. This created a snowball effect, and now our team participates to many other events against other companies, like the Laurier du Sport, organized by the FFSE. It's super. Huh? If you don't know, you must try. It's perfect. And you must see how all my team and we are so proud to defend the colors of the Regma team. It's super. From the beginning, we, as manager of the company, are fully involved in the practice of the sport, and we are very happy to share this moment with our staff. The main problem we found at the beginning were to find the time to organize and to follow the implementation, to start motivating the team, and to pay the coach and the equipment. But we did it, and we don't regret it. The economic result is that Regmatern performs better than the other companies in the same category. In fact, we make a 16 million euro turnover with only 25 people today, which is a very good result. So I think one of the most important factors to succeed the implementation of sport at work, and it's really, really important, is that the leaders and the manager, as you told Annie, are really convinced about the benefits and are fully involved. You must show the example to the employees. You must sweat with them, and you must take part in the sport program. We also link the sport with charity causes to give to the company more social impact. And what about the COVID? So during pandemic, we keep our fitness room open and to allow the employees to do sports safely, one after the other. They were very happy to have this opportunity. This strong team spirit helped us overcome this crisis with success. Solidarity and good mood led us to work out the solution to keep our company on the move. As you can see, if you go to YouTube, we have a channel and you can see our funny video we made with the Regma team, Regma Terms YouTube channel. So my opinion is that sport at work is really, really a good thing. But I have to say too that it's not so easy daily, but particularly for small firms, because it requires day after day a large investment in time and in money, but particularly in time from the management and from a part of the team. We also have to face in France other serious difficulties with the fiscal administration, as someone told, who consider sport as natural advantages, and a problem of responsibility with for the boss in case of accident during the sport. To conclude, for me, the WAC certification is a very good idea, and I'm really proud and happy to take part into this project. But it should not be just a recognition. It should really bring financial help or fiscal and taxes advantages and legal support in terms of insurance. That would, I think, encourage companies like us. I speak about little firm. So that would encourage companies like us to continue their effort and motivate the other to begin the implementation. Those dispositions would be very appreciated by all kinds of firms, even the small ones. And it will also be a way for the workers to see what the European Union does for them concretely. Thank you for your attention.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much, Ms. Lisa Ulmer. I understand there are different hurdles to take, but leading by example could definitely first big step to make and help to convince the people around you. Secondly, I would like to invite Heidi, Manager of the Quality of Life, Sport and Well-being at Work at Veolia, to take the floor. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to this roundtable. It is a really honor to be part of the pioneers, because this is how we are called in the team of WAC, and in the challenge to win this certification. And I really insist in the word of winning, because it's something to deserve, because it's the result of a lot of efforts of the company, of the employees of the company, and also of the people who are volunteer to support sport, because our sport activity is mainly volunteers. It's not always external suppliers that we ask to come and to help us to create something. It comes from the internal organization. So today, being part of WAC for Veolia was to make a total account of the effort that is made for years. For Veolia, it's a company that is more than 180,000 people in the world. Our president is the main supporter of sport within company, which is for us a very, very big chance, because it makes things very easy to convince managers and convince employees to join the movement. When it comes from the leader, then it opens the many possibility and many ways to support a company sports. It can be with well-being, it can be with sport itself, it can be also with awareness. There is so many formats that we can use to do it. And for Veolia, we made the choice to choose all of them and give the opportunity to the entities of the group who would like to join the movement to express their own local issues about company sports. So our organization today within Veolia about company sports and being active at work is to give the chance to each entity to come with great ideas, great local ideas. We have the chance to have a diversity of countries and culture of sport and company sport. And so we have different way to implement the sport. And we have one organization who is corporate and bringing together everything that is done in the world of Veolia. And this is called AVS. It's an association organized by with the demand of our president. And with this association, we bring every initiative, best practices together in one place to give more visibility of it, share it. We have a slogan is we do, we share, we all benefit. So this slogan is really a resume of what happened with all the sport activities implemented in the company. So this is the organization. This organization is leading now for more than 20 years in the company with mainly volunteers, which are employees themselves who takes part of their time. And what we do now is to make a resume of this and say, we are doing great things with a lot of entities. We want to give an award. We want to have a recognition also. We want to put in value what is done. What is better than a certification? So that's why we decided to join the WAC, because with this certification, it's a way to thank all these entities, all these employees who believes in sport activities and do their best to make it work. And also an opportunity for us to make a measurement of what is done. By working with the pioneers these last months, we had the possibility to see where we had to improve ourselves. So the work certification is helping us also to improve our own organization, because we noticed, for example, within Veolia that we were doing a lot of things, but there was no real KPIs. There was not only a real measurement about the impact. And thanks to the certification, when we worked with Gervin and all the team, we noticed that this was also important, because just showing pictures and videos and testimonies of the individual employees doing sport within the company was not enough. We needed to have something that is more business cases and that will convince other managers to go for it also, because we must not forget that a company is turnover. People are coming and are leaving. And when the new people comes, we have to convince them also. And for the one who are already here, we have to help them to show what they have done for many years of effort within a company sport. And thanks to this certification, we will be able to do it now, because there will be some really concrete tools to help us to do this. I will not say more, because I can say a lot about company sport within Veolia. I can give some example of best practices that we are going for. We are participating to sport games, company sport games in national level, in European level, in world level. We are world champions. We are proud to say it, and hope to be to keep it. And we also participate in winter games sport, which is more family way. So we make the occasion to promote the diversity. And we are also participating to a race. It's called Run for Diversity. This Run for Diversity is implemented in presential. People can run together or 3 or 6 kilometers alone or with a duo. And this is also making the promotion of gender and gender equality, of disability, and of intergeneration. So all these diversity issues. So as you can see, the sport activities we are implementing in our companies are supporting corporate social responsibility subject. It's with very HR subject, but it's also managers challengement subject. With the sport in the company, it's a real tool to help our employees to go for health, occupational, so prevention, and also for health and sport activity. So if we always have to show that sport in the company is not only a waste of money, and not only is not a waste of time, it's not a waste of money, and it's not a waste of energy of the company. but it brings all this. It brings the performance. And one day I asked to my president, why are you supporting the sport? You have so many topics so important for the company. And he said, Heidi, when you have a car, if you don't use a good quality fuel, your car will drive only for a limited distance. I want my company to be performant. And of this, I need to take care of the fuel and the engine. So my people, my employees are the engine. And if they are in good health, and if they are happy to be at work, so the pride of belonging, I will count on them and they will count on me. So I think the sport can help me to give this to the employees. So when he gave us these answers, I am working with one of my colleagues who is here today. He's a rugby player. I'm a former athlete. And when I look at him, and he's not a sport person, our president, but he understood everything about what sport can bring to our employees and to the performance of the company. Last things we are working with sport is the business, because of course every company is cared about the business. And if we are able to make a link between company sports and the business of the company, we win the award. And this is what we do. We work on calling offers, and we help to win customers thanks to our sport initiatives. So usually when we are facing a negotiation with a customer, the first thing he says is, okay, I'm working in this city is asking me to support this club sport. What are you being able to do for me if I work with you? Oh, but we are sport people, we are a sport company, and we have employees that are practicing sport. When you have a customer who finds his identity in you, you have more chance to win the call than if not. So sport can help also the business of the company, and company sports is the heart of all this. So I can say more, but I will stop here.
Thank you very much, Heidi. Seems that there is a great mindset at Veolia. I don't think you're only a pioneer, but also an ambassador for the project, if I listen carefully. I remembered we share, we all benefit. I hope that's not patented, because I think it's a good slogan for different organizations and things we do as well. So great job. Last but not least, I would like to give the floor to Mr. David Lipkens, Project Manager Wellbeing at Medexcel ING Belgium. Please.
Hi, I'm David. Thanks for having me, and also thanks for choosing a really nice picture of me. But at least you see me in action, supporting our colleagues. And Jerome will be happy because I'm wearing a sport outfit, so also great to see. Like Simon said, I'm working for ING Belgium, and a little bit for the Netherlands as well. We have a really big well-being project over there. We have a lot of things about mental well-being. We have things about nutrition, but I was asked to talk about the physical well-being, also the thing where I'm responsible for. So I'm going to talk about that. First, I'm going to talk a little bit about our buildings and the furniture in our buildings, because every desk we have, and in our main buildings we have quite a lot, because we have about 6,000 desks in our buildings. All of them are sit-standing desks. So with a nice button, you can push on it and you can stand up and work standing. So that's a really good thing. If you have to sit, because we do have a sitting job, you have a really good chair, you have an ergonomic chair, all of our employees, also in the agencies. So yeah, perhaps I forgot to say, for those who don't know, normally I used to say I work for ING and everybody knows what it is, but ING is a bank. So perhaps also important to say. So also in our agencies, people have an ergonomic chair. So one of the really important things that we do in our company. COVID-19 is facing us with working from home a lot, like lots of people. But we saw that a lot of people worked on a kitchen chair, on a kitchen desk, if I can call it like that, on their laptop, so sitting like this, which is not really good. So we offered them a budget so they could buy ergonomic stuff to work at home, like an ergonomic chair, the same as we have in the office. Also a desk, also once again a sit-standing desk. So you can also stand a working stand at home. which has also been a real success, because like I said, working at home is not always easy. Not everybody has the facilities to work on a good way, on an ergonomic way. But if you have to sit, do it good. We also have a slogan that's called "Sit better, move more." So if you have to sit, do it good, but try to move as much as possible. But I come to that later. You can also make an appointment with an ergonomist virtually then, that you adapt your chair and your desk well, so you sit quite straight with your hands correctly and working on your screen. So that's also something we did. Then in our building, we also have a gym. We aim to have it in all our central buildings. So we have 4. We have 1 really big gym in one of the central buildings, so 3 to go. 1 will be finished later this year, the next one in 2023. So we hope to have all 4 of them equipped with a really nice gym. The gym we have is a gym with about 50 machines, so you can go and have your trainings. There's 14 hours of personal coaching available, and also 14 hours of group sessions, going from yoga to Zumba to spinning, a little bit of everything. So available for everybody. It's open from 6 in the morning till 8 in the evening. So you can work flexible, sorry. So you can go there whenever you want. So flexible is also an important word if you want to have some people who are active at work, because I'm not paid to work from 9 to 5. I'm paid to do my job. So it doesn't matter when I do it. Or how big pauses I take if I do my job. That's the main thing. So that's also an important thing, I think, not only for mental well-being, but also for the physical well-being. So if you don't do that, people start at 9, they work, they eat, they work again, and they work late, and then they're tired and have to take care of the kids and everything like that, and they don't have time to do to be active. So that's also why we have some flexibility over there. And then the main project we do for our physical well-being is that we have a platform for all our employees in Belgium and the Netherlands. It's a digital platform, of course. You can find tips and tricks over there about all kinds of well-being stuff, mental, foods, being active, of course. But you can also, and that's something COVID-19 learned, or the COVID-19 period learned us, is that you can do some digital events. It's really fun. We say at that point, you all do something together. We used to say, at that point, we all go to that place. We can go for a run, cycle, or walk. We still do that, hopefully once everything is settled and those events will take place again. But we also do it digitally now. So we say, start from your front door, take your ears, put them in your ears, and listen to the things we have to say to you. Because you can do a walk, for example, 2.5K or 5K, or you can run 5K or 10K. And we give you some fun motivation during what you're doing, and also some fun tips. So for example, if you were running 10K and you pass the 8 kilometers, 848 meters, we say, great job, you've done the distance of the height of the Mount Everest. So we give some fun things like that to motivate the people to do things. Other thing we have on the platform is digital challenges. For example, next week and the 3 weeks after that, we ask you to form a team of 6 persons, and together in those 3 weeks, you have to walk. You have to have 1 million steps. So altogether, you have to be active, take steps. Once again, the threshold is not too high. Everybody can do that. So it's a fun way. You can get a little prizes, because I don't know if it's in all companies, but in our company, it's important. You can motivate people the most if they can win something. So that's also, in our company at least, an important thing to do. So those challenges are also quite fun to do. Next thing you can do on that platform is register for real-life events. There have been some this year, last year none, hopefully next year again. Some events, that means that you can participate in a normal year in 140 or around 140 events in all over Belgium and the Netherlands, walking, running, cycling. So the most important or the most popular sports in our countries. So that's also fun to do. You can do it with your colleagues, you can do it alone, you can do it with your partner, your family, whatever you want. And of course, also important is that if you participate in one of these things, we put you in a shirt or in an outfit in our favorite color. I think you can guess which one. It's on my pen over here. And that's really fun to see, because when you pass somebody who is wearing the same shirt, you're he's one of my company. You're going to encourage him, so that's also a funny thing to see. Also, it's a big success what we do. We have lots of participants, lots of different participants as well, because there's also something like the social pressure that people say, "God, let's do it together. Let's go to a group session in the gym. Let's go to an event together." There are also some team events that you have to do in teams. So it's also a fun thing to see. But because of that, lots of people participate. So not only the really sportive people, because you can reach them, or you can try to reach them, but you will reach them. So that's not the most important target group you want to reach. But they can attract other people as well, and that's also really nice to see. But I'm also going to talk a little bit about the problems we're facing with things like this. I work in a bank, and a bank is a really risky thing. Doesn't mean that it's risky to work there. Perhaps it is, but still. But we have a lot of regulation. We have a lot of things we have to follow, because a company like ours, that's big as ours, that is on the stock exchange, doesn't want to be in the newspaper with ING did this because there was a lack of things they had to be done. So there are really risk procedures that you have to follow, especially. I love the GDPR regulation, but it's also a pain in the ass if you want to organize something in a company. So that can be a problem. And also, I heard lots of people talk about tax. It's not only that you want tax to get things from tax, but also if you do things, you have to pay taxes a lot extra. So that can be something that can be tricky as well, because it's not only the participation you pay for the events, but you pay also tax on it because it's an advantage. So that's also a tricky thing to do. But also I want to give you some tips and tricks how to do this. First of all, I think in the last few minutes, I mentioned the word sports once because I couldn't do anything else, but try to do it not to do it because it's a really, you want to have the threshold as low as possible. So I always speak about an active lifestyle, being active, moving, or things like that. But I never speak about sports because you have lots of people who think sports, oh, it's nothing for me, I can't do that. If you speak about being active or moving, then it's something else. Then it's possible for everybody. So that's, for me, a really important thing to do. I see that a lot. If there's a new colleague from communication that is helping me again, they are talking about sport. No, don't talk about sports, talk about being active. So for me, that is a really important thing. Keep the threshold as low as possible. Don't talk too much about sports, talk about being active. So that's a really important thing to do. And perhaps even more important, keep it as voluntary as possible. Never, ever speak, you have to do this. So don't use this finger. It's an important thing because people, they all know they have to be active. Just give them the opportunity. Try to have some ambassadors, and that can attract people to do it. But never ever say you have to do it. So those are the most important things I can teach you. If you have any other questions, don't hesitate to ask. I think I'm going to keep it short, so Simon will be happy. So that was it from me.
I've been happy all day, so, but thanks for taking my feelings into account. Also, thanks for sharing these good practices, not only the benefits, but also the hurdles to take. I remember that at ING, people don't say you have to do sports. I think that's swearing inside the church, if I understood correctly. So thank you for sharing these examples. To wrap up this conference, I would like to invite Mr. Didier Bessere to the floor to share his impression of this afternoon session, to conclude this event, and to enlighten us about some possible next steps to take. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Simon. Don't worry, I know that we are late, and I will try. I'm looking the boss, Gervan, he said, please, President, a very short speech is a good speech. Yes, I know. Okay, no, more seriously, I want to thank you, of course, to be there, to thank the Sports Van Enderen and especially Mr. Paquet for hosting us in the Flemish government building, to thanks very warmly Flo and the new chief of the sport unit, and to take time to stay with us all the afternoon. I think it's very important. It's the first time. Thank you very much. And you all, of course, for this good job. I don't want to resume or to say more words for nothing. I think it's this kind of project, Erasmus project, are very important for the company sport and to enlarge and to develop, because we just heard some good practice. It's of course very interesting to have to know more by each other. But at the end, the result of this kind of studies is that we will have some things. We will have some things when we will discuss with different CEO in a different country. Because as you know, and as you can understand, a company is always pragmatic, and the CEO is a serious area. And we don't want to organize something for nothing, for no result. And very often, a CEO can be in favor of sport, but he have also to prove to the board that his politics is good for the company, is good for the employers. And I remember at the beginning, you speak about Orange just after the pandemic. It was very unusual to organize this brainstorming and team spirit. I don't know exactly what we can say in this case, but of course, after the pandemic, the pandemic was at the beginning a disaster. It's still not so good, but it's the paradox, and I think it's Jérôme speak about paradox. The paradox is that, and with Flo also, just before we discuss, maybe it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to understand that we have a kind of new way, and we have to take this opportunity to improve the level of sports, and not to be the next champion. Why not? But only for health and well-being. And I think it's important for the future, because we have always to speak about the future. I think the second project WAC is not finished. You have a full years to work, and with Emma, it's quite different. But we are now thinking about the next step, because it's only a first step, of course, and we will have to think about a new success. And I think that it's a kind of success. It's a kind of success, and it will be very important to produce a kind of report about or your job, as a specialist. So thank you very much again. And I know that you have flight, train, and we understand also that today it's a special day in Belgium because of a strike of policemen. So maybe we will have sport to go to the railway station and to the airport. So thank you very much.
Sorry for taking the floor one last time. I would like to thank everybody from my side, also the people from home. Thanks for joining in. And one last time, I would like to give the floor to Gurvan for some practical information.
I'm coming back for the third time, but it will be the last time. Just for logistical matters, for the WAC partners and those who are going to the Motel 1, there will be 2 minibus who will be leaving just in front of the Touré Taxi building, so you can go directly to the Motel 1. And for the others, you have public transport, quite easy to find, and you also can take some taxis. We order some taxis for those coming, but also in the street, just in front of Touré Taxi, you can find it. So thank you again, all of you, for your participation. Thanks for the teams who was in charge of the organization, Rian, Aurélie, Nathan, Rodolphe, Eleonore, Pauline, and I forgot so many people. It was really a teamwork, and believe me, it was not so easy in this context. But finally, we succeed. So we keep in touch. You have the website of both projects, and we are at your disposal if you need any further details. And thank you, Simon, for being brilliant in the moderation. It's not an easy exercise, and you were the champion. See you guys. Have a safe trip back.